Okay, as promised in other videos, I wanted how to do a quick video on the difference between average return versus real return. There's an actual difference, right? All too often when we're talking about long-term returns of the market, we're talking about averages because that's how we can separate kind of the ups and the downs of the market and say what's the average, right? Well, the reality is that when we speak of return and averages, we actually don't tell the full story as it relates to actual money in our account, right? Because the actual average return does not always reflect that same average in the amount of dollars we have in our account. Because sometimes the market's up, we gain a lot, right? And then we lose, although there's a loss of what, right? From what amount, right? So I want to be able to give you a quick slide to help you understand that an average return in the market is not necessarily your real return, meaning the dollars in your account as a result of that, right? So with that being said, okay, so let's do some math, okay? You have Mr. A and Mr. B. They both invest $100. Who ends up $100,000 and who ends up better, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's 10 or a million, right? It's the same thing. So Mr. A, and Mr. B, first year they put, Mr. A gains at 40%. Mr. B gains 10. Okay? The second year, Mr. A loses 20. Mr. B gains 10. So both of them have a total return of 20%, right? Total return of 20%. They just got there in different ways. So if that's the case, do they have the same amount of money? Well, let's look. Because when Mr. A gains 40%, he goes up to 140, where Mr. B is at 110. But the next year, when Mr. A loses 20%, he loses 20% of 140, not his original 100 that he put in, right? Where Mr. B gains 10% on top of the 110, right? So that second year, now Mr. A has 112, Mr. B has 121. So their real return is 12 and 21%. Neither of them actually even got 20, right? And so average or total return is not the same thing as real return. Now here a more extreme example. Mr. A loses 50%, Mr. B gains nothing. Then Mr. A gains 50%, Mr. B gains nothing. A true average here is a 0, right? 0%. Okay, average for both of them. But do they have the same? Once again, do they have the same amount of money? Right? Well, Mr. A, he loses 50%, so goes down to 50,000. When he gains 50%, he doesn't go back to 100,000 because it's only 50% on the 50,000 that he has in his account. So he goes up to 75, where Mr. B stays at the 100, but Mr. A's real return is 20. He has a 25% loss from where he started, where Mr. B is still at 0%. So the point is that losing money hurts you more than making money helps you, right? And so this is where these index products become huge, because you never actually experience the loss and have to spend time recovering from that loss, right? You can have a 0% year, but you stay where you're at, and then the next year when it grows, you start building on top of that, right? It's always an upward movement as the index increases. Granted, there's going to be years here and there where you get little return or 0%, but you never go backwards. Like you never lose, like in Mr. A here, where he lost 50%. So now in order to get back to 100,000, he has to basically get 100% return to get back to the 100% or $100,000 that he originally had, right? I mean, so bottom line is average return is not real return. And so when someone is talking about something that did an average of this or that, it doesn't necessarily translate into dollars in your pocket, right? You know, I'm going to do another video on how a 5% return, a 5% average return beats a 7% average return, right? How is that possible? Well, it's because average returns don't tell the full story, right? Makes sense? All right, let's go make it happen.